Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We've had something of a time the last few cycles, and the reason why was because all of our Drecos died. They died because they weren't getting any balm lilies to eat, and the balm lilies stopped growing because it got too cold in here because our heating solution was not adequate. When the heating solution tried to kick in for multiple rooms to heat the place up, by the time it got down to this room, it just didn't have enough heat to dump off into this room. Ergo, no balm lilies, dead Drecos, which ended up all the way over here into no repaired Atmos suits. So without Atmos suits, everybody was kind of sitting in here until I figured out what was going on, and it's because all of the Atmos suits had been broken. So we had to get rid of the Atmos suit checkpoint, and once we got rid of the Atmos suit checkpoint, everybody could go out, and we started planting some thimble reeds to get, we needed some reed fiber. So this is gonna be the reed fiber until we get some more Drecos. But considering there are no more Drecos anywhere on the map, we gotta wait until we find them on another planet, or we happen to get gifted them through the printing pod. And by then, our Dreco chamber should be back ready again. Now what we've done, we've tied into the automation here, so whenever it's sending a green signal, it tells the space heater to turn on just like it does the gas pipe. When it gets warm enough, it'll turn it off, and that'll be that. Which got me thinking, it'd almost be better if I could designate a range in here, or maybe even have two thermosensors. One thermosensor set to say 40 degrees to turn the heat on, but then another thermal sensor that says, hey, you don't need to start cooling it down until it gets to 50. So there's a wider range instead of it doing one or the other. That might be something we look into doing. For now, though, the space heater will be the solution. We also have a new rule. We are no longer going to put farm tiles in between the rooms. Next time we build them, we'll build them on top of the tiles like this, so everything is contained within that area without it bleeding across, because these dirt tiles might as well be metal tiles for the purposes of transferring heat. Today, though, after we've caught up from all the little maintenance things we've had to do, the mission is space. But first, there's some projects we wanted to accomplish. First, I don't like how the dupes have to come up this ladder and then move over to get over to this ladder. So we're going to consolidate our transpo system and our ladder run on this side. And then we'll be able to put the sciencey space things over here, all the rockets here, and then our power development here. Now, unfortunately, this is going to require moving some heavy watt wire around. It's generally a pain in the butt, so it's going to take a minute. All right, step one is complete. We tapped into the power on this side of the crust. It's feeding our new battery box, which is great. We are moving all this ethanol into these liquid reservoirs, and then we're going to completely destroy this, and then we're going to be able to fill this in. Spaceport flatness. It's going to be beautiful. We're also building like a little sciencey in space area, and that is going to go right over here. I'm not exactly sure how we're going to do some things, namely the rad bolts. You can see because we're using insulated tile here, we end up getting less rads per cycle. Out here it's 25, in here it's 10. So what I think we might do, in the interest of science, is make some of these more radiation transparent. Just don't know what that looks like yet. All right, that finishes up our little room here. We've added a ladder over here so they can get to the 5th tile up, and we're gonna try window tile and see how that does for radiation. So windows still eat some of the radiation. This one's not as bad. It's 11, 10, 9 rads per cycle down here. All right, I ran a little experiment. I put a bunch of glass here, and then we put some mafic rock, I put some ceramic, obsidian, sedimentary rock, granite, and even igneous rock followed by a couple metal tiles, and then a couple of plastic tiles, and then a couple of bunker tiles, in the effort to see which one allows radiation to come through the best. And as you can see, most of them, the first tile beneath, are 11. Some of them are 9, 10, but what is this? 17. It seems like the gold tiles, the gold metal tiles, seem to allow the most radiation. We even tried some steel bunkers to no avail, and some plastic. Which got me thinking, we maybe should try some other metals. Let's try some steel, maybe some copper, and why not? Maybe even a little bit of aluminum, just to see. So our experiment is, rings true. Gold seems to be the best sort of conductor, or the best radiation transparent. I don't know what we call that. That's just confusing. But all the rest here, the iron, the steel, the copper, the aluminum, while they had mixed bag of results, none of them did as good as the gold. Now the bad news is we don't have a lot of gold, so we're just going to make one little section over here, and that'll be the best for the sort of radiation transfer. And now it's time for me to clean all this up. We also have a project going on Goopula. Remember, we have this natural gas geyser, and we're going to pump it through some beautiful natural gas generators, and we're going to get even more polluted water and carbon dioxide out of the process. All great, until Bubbles managed to get stuck. Well, this wouldn't be so bad, except I was like, okay, well, we'll just build these insulated tiles first. We'll get Bubbles out of there. And where is Wolf Rider? Eating. By himself. When he knew Bubbles was trapped. That's just wrong, Wolf Rider. You've spent hundreds of cycles with Bubbles, and you left her to the wolves. Alright, so now the question is, what are we going to do to fix this? And I think this is just a matter of making the priority the emergency status, and that'll actually get Wolf Rider up off his butt. We don't actually need all of these. We don't want him wasting time on trying to build all of them. We only need every other one to be completed because, well, Bubbles can hop over one tile each. So I think that'll be good there. Oh, Bubbles is going to sleep. She's got a full bladder. This isn't looking good. We're gonna make a mess. Now, we could have definitely done that out of normal tiles, but Bubbles had plenty of oxygen in her mask. I mean, it was all good. I mean, look, she still hasn't go to sleep or anything. This process is going to be fairly simple. We're just going to put a gas pump in here and just let it pump all the environment out until eventually this whole room is filled with nothing but natural gas. We'll put a little bit of automation on it, just so we have some sort of control. I'm thinking an Atmos sensor. As you can see, we have a ton of carbon dioxide. In fact, we have many tons of carbon dioxide, and we've managed to store up all of it in this little container here. So our gas reservoir is sitting with 150 kilos of carbon dioxide, and we'll be able to keep Old Explorer nice and chock full. Speaking of which, we actually had a recommendation for Old Explorer, its new name. I think it's Felipe or Philip. Sorry I'm messing that up. I'm sure I am one way or the other. For Sonar 5. I kind of liked it, and I was going to go and change it, except right now I don't think there's a mechanism where you can actually change your rocket's name. So we're going to have to wait until that gets put back into the game, because you used to be able to. Now it just doesn't seem like you can. So because we have so much carbon dioxide, I figured, hey, why not start feeding it back to the slicksters? So that's what we're gonna do. And since we actually have a normal source of food for the slicksters, we don't have to worry about them going hungry. So why don't we start taming them again and get a ton of crude oil? Thank you, save game, for the incredible slowdown. let's head back in here, grab our grooming station, and we'll start grooming these slicksters again. And by grooming them, that means they'll have all their needs met and their metabolism should go way up. Here's the start of our little spaceport science facility. We just moved the material study terminal over and put a few rad bolt generators, and they're all pointing over here. And again, we put them on the automation signal, so whenever we're ready, we flip it on and it shoots them right in here. We also put a couple pieces of igneous rock here, just in case we overshoot. We don't want to take out any dupes. So a little blockade there. But again, I mean, the gold is working pretty well. On the radiation suction devices, they're getting 17 rads per cycle, which I'm plenty fine with. We're not going anywhere anytime soon, so this is going to be perfect. All right, our natural gas power plant is up and running and looking beautiful. We can now lock this so that way none of the dupes get in here. This room is full of nothing but natural gas, and this pump just pumps it into these natural gas generators. And the great thing about natural gas generators is you can see they're getting rid of polluted water. Well, we can follow the polluted water, comes up over here and dumps into our little polluted water tank, in which it's feeding these bog buckets. Right now, there's not enough water to feed all the bog buckets, but at least we got some growing. It's a start. And eventually, the polluted water will back up enough to where we'll be able to feed these bog buckets flat out. The natural gas generators just started going full bore, so it'll take a little while, but eventually there'll be enough polluted water in this whole system. Additionally, we made a couple other changes over on Goopula. Because the natural gas generators are going to be producing a lot of carbon dioxide, we wanted to make sure that we had a good carbon dioxide sink. And that's what we figured this would be good for. There's a couple of slicksters in here. Now these are the long hair types. They've gotten to be long hair because of some of the sections that were cool enough. But you can see these fellas down here, they will continuously eat carbon dioxide. Now, as we need, we can continuously add more slicksters to this, and they'll be able to eat all the carbon dioxide that's coming to it. As proof in that pudding, you should see how much the slicksters over on Butito are eating. All this carbon dioxide coming in, and it still hasn't risen beyond this level. They're eating all of it without any hesitation. Hungry little suckers, aren't they? And since we are going back to slicksters, we added a couple more incubators, set them at a priority of 5. This will eventually give us more eggs than we need, in which they will be into the egg cracker, making the omelets, and then going over here and being fed to the hatches. Just more of the circle of life. Now you can see, because we're starting to grow our own thimble reeds, we've used a lot of our polluted water. But that's not going to be a big deal either, because eventually over on Goopula, we'll have enough backstock of polluted water that we'll be able to pump some over to Butito. Might take a little while, but it'll be fine. Now the power, we're wasting a ton of power over here. You can see on Cycle 915's report that we wasted 978 kilojoules of power. That's about 20% of our power production that was just lost. And we're doing a couple of little things to use some power. As you can see, the polluted water is coming into this tank, and then we're using another pump to pump it into the bog buckets. This is for a couple of reasons. We very easily could have connected these liquid pipes right into these hydroponic farms instead of having a separate liquid pump. The reason why we did it this way is because if anything ever goes wrong with this line, we don't want it to stifle the crops. We want the crops to be independent of it, so to speak. Now, it's still relying on this water, but again, eventually we'll have a backlog to where the bog buckets will be able to survive, even if we accidentally cut this line. Now that we've gotten those things settled, it's about time that we get back into space. We have a lot of research that we need to knock out. If you remember, the reason why it's imperative that we go to space now is because we need to knock out the Tier 4 research, which requires the Orbital Microlab. We need to get up in space and start conducting some research. Except, I don't want to just go to space just to do research. I also want to explore all of this. You can see there's a lot of tiles for us to go through. In order to explore it, we need some telescope, and we can actually use the telescope in space as well, so I think it's time to add a couple of rockets. We'll have one doing the exploration, and the other one doing the research. Gotta hate it when this happens. Not sure what happened. We don't have any of the mods activated because a new patch just dropped, and the mod developers have to update their mods in order for them to be good for the game. That at least eliminates mods from the problem. Not sure what else could be, but let's get back into it. Okay, here's our basic rocket design. I went through a couple of different iterations, and this is the one that I've come up with that I like best. First things first, we had to move the rocket control station over a little bit, so I had a room for this this sort of wall of doors. And the doors and their position are very important, and that way the dupe can actually jump on top of the door to be able to get into these rooms. Now, this was built with rooms in mind. You can see here that we have a fully operational barracks with given the +1 to morale, a latrine with +1 to morale, and then a great hall with +6 to morale. Very important, because we want to make sure whatever dupe that we throw in here to do all this research is not going to have a mental break being alone and unafraid inside of space. Couple of little features. We have the orbital micro lab with the jumbo battery on the inside. More on that later. I do have a solar panel that you saw on the rocket on the outside, and this little power fitting is connected to it. It keeps this jumbo battery going, so that way we can operate the orbital micro lab. Some other small features is we have the hand sanitizer station, which will use bleach stone, and then the outhouse. That all it requires is dirt. So a little bit of bleach stone, a little bit of dirt, and our bathroom needs have been met. Now, we go back to the outside, and we have a couple of issues. You see, this is our basic rocket. We have the carbon dioxide engine, we have the spacefarer module, we have the solar panel that I told you about, and then the basic nose cone. This gives this rocket a total height of 9 out of a possible 10. The rocket height is determined by the engine type. Because we're using carbon dioxide engines, we only have a height of 10. It's the reason why you can see here that I have a battery module and a solar panel module. Well, if I go into this rocket and I try to add a module, it says, nope, the engine's height limit has been reached. As you go over here, you can see 9 out of 10. So only something that would only be one height would actually be able to go over there. As you can see, the only thing that is one height is the artifact transport module and the solar panel module, but that doesn't do us any good. So we actually don't need this battery. We can't use the battery in order to get as much space as we need inside these Spacefarer modules. I know what you're thinking about Spacefarer modules. Well, maybe just use the basic nose cone. Well, let me show you why. Let me go ahead and add something above this, and we will use the smaller Spacefarer nose cone. In order to do it, we got to remove this Spacefarer module. I haven't done any work inside this one, so for the interest of science, I'll show you why. So let me deconstruct this and get back to that. Back over into Old Explorer 5, there's a couple other details I wanted to show you. You see, we put a ration box, that way we could have some food up here, that way, you know, the dupe doesn't starve or anything like that. But that got me into thinking, well, what kind of food? So if you go back to our kitchen, you can look at each of the food items. For instance, click on omelet, it'll show you what's good with an omelet. You can then click on omelet itself, and it brings up the database on it. And you can see here that an omelet has a base spoil time of 4 cycles. So you're like, okay, 4 cycles is not enough for the time that we're going to be in space. So let me go out further. All right, Swampy Delights. Click on Swampy Delights. 8 cycles, a little bit better. Even Grub Fruit Preserve. It's decent. It's at 32 cycles. But what if we wanted to be excessive? Well, that's where the berry sludge comes into play. Berry sludge never spoils. Don't tell me, don't ask me what kind of food it is. It just never spoils. And it even gives a +3 quality. I mean, that's pretty comparative to, say, barbecue. Click on barbecue, it has a +3 as well. So you're like, okay, so we'll use berry sludge for our space missions. But berry sludge takes sleet wheat grain and bristleberry. Well, we know in our greenhouse, we were actually growing some berry blossoms. In fact, we want to throw a few more up there.
And right now, I'm still playing games with the temperature. You can see these have been halted because of the temperature. And it's probably because it's getting too warm up here. Bristle blossoms have a maximum temperature of 30, and these are right on the edge. And I just figured out why it's overheating in here. Our temperature control system has not been working because they have not been powered on. Way to go. Let's do a little bit of this. What are we using for this? Yeah, we are not using iron once again. Why do you always want to select my iron? Let's go back to the beautiful copper that we have just for this purpose. All right, that will chill out here in just a little bit. So we're going to be growing these bristle blossoms, but we also need some sleet wheat. Lucky for us, old Goopula had some sleet wheat. So here we are, growing a little bit of sleet wheat. Now, sleet wheat's is not too bad. It has a pretty stringent temperature control. It has minus 55 to 5C requirement. But then after that, it just takes dirt, a little bit of water, and your old farm plot. We're good. We have plenty of water. We have an infinite supply of water. So we're going to kind of get this sleet wheat going. And I would throw the sleet wheat into our greenhouse if I had more confidence in our temperature control, but not quite yet. Getting the sleet wheat down to the required 5 degrees might be pushing it for our little temperature control system, but we will see. You can already see that these blossoms are now growing just fine. The temperature's already starting to regulate a little bit, which is good. Having a bit of a problem with this temperature thermosensor. You can see it doesn't matter if I turn it on or off, this gas shutoff is staying on. I'm not sure what's going on. I looked at the automation wire and the wires seem to be operating just fine. You can see I can also flip it back off, go over to automation. It's still not sending the right signal over to gas shutoff. So we're going to remake this thermosensor and see what's going on. I think I discovered the problem. This is even after multiple restarts and removing all this. I have the NOT gate upside down. Yep. Once again, the NOT gate does me in. So basically what was happening, since this is turned off, there was no signal on it. So the input of the NOT gate was sending out a red, which was flipping it to here to green. Well, when this is on green, it was sending it across this wire back to this gas shutoff. Now this should work. There we go. That'll cool our bristle blossoms down right quick. That beautiful water is coming through at 18, 20, either way. Much better body temperature for our bristle blossoms. Over on Goopula, we've discovered another problem. My math, basically it was YouTube math skills kicking in. Each natural gas generator produces 67.5 grams per second. You times that by 600 seconds and you get a great little figure of just about 1,500 grams per cycle. Well, unfortunately, 40,000 grams per cycle is 40 kilos per cycle, and that is what every single bog bucket requires. So they are thirsty boys. So we're not going to be able to run bog buckets. As it is, we went back down to 0 calories over on Goopula, so we're going to have to go over back to Butito and send them some more grub fruit preserve. I'm going to go back to the drawing board here on Goopula and figure out what our permanent food source is going to be. So here I am trying to discover more methods of making food on Goopula, and I realized we had really bad luck with these rolls. I mean, our first 2 asteroids, only source of water is 2 cool steam vents. I mean, that is garbage. Alright, the dupes have finally finished building the nose cone. With the battery and the standard Spacefarer nose cone, we're only eating up 8 height. But here's the issue. You look at the interior of just the nose cone, not a lot of living space. And this then becomes the problem. Trying to figure out how to get a dupe to where he can permanently live in this area and use the telescope has evaded me. If you got some ideas, I'd love to hear them down in the comments below. But right now, this is just too cramped to be able to maintain morale, have a dupe successfully live, and run that telescope. Hence the reason with just our carbon dioxide engines, this is what we're forced to go with. The design on the old Explorer 5, which is just dandy. The only disadvantage, it only has a range of 4 tiles, which basically means you can go out 2 tiles and then come back in. But this will give us a great start being able to discover these other areas, and who knows what might be on these deposits. They're probably not planetoids. They're probably just the deposits of different minerals, maybe even water. Let's not get our hopes up. But it's a good start. With that, I think I've got plenty of footage. I know we did a lot of little maintenance things. We've also gotten our Sleet Wheat online. Sleet Wheat is coming. We need to start tightening some things up. And what I mean by that is, yeah, we got the bristle blossoms going and the temperature's finally starting to get regulated here. We have permanent food supply. Everything's going great on Butito as far as infinite sustainability. Over on Goopula, it's not the same story. Right now, they're eating because we're dropping off grub fruit preserve through the ye old supply teleporter output. So I got some thinking to do. I may try to just automate everything there is in this colony and send everybody back to Butito. I don't know yet. But right now, without any water, it's rather hard to run anything. I mean, we've always got the old mush bars with dirt and water, but again, that requires water. You go down here, you can use nosh beans, which we can grow nosh beans here on Goopula, but again, takes water. Berry sludge, a little different. It needs sleet wheat grain and not water straight out, but guess what? Bristleberries, they need water. So I'm not really sure what we're going to be able to do on Goopula. The only sustainable source of water we have is what little polluted water we have coming out of here, coming out of the natural gas geyser. I'm going to do some math in the background and find out what crops we can make this water really stretch and see from there. But I don't see any more geysers on here. In fact, you can even go here, click on Goopula, and it shows you exactly what geysers are here. I was thinking, well, if I had another natural gas geyser, I could run even more natural gas generators, but I don't even see one of them. So let me know your ideas in the comments below. I look forward to talking with you over it. Until then, talk to you soon.